You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on.
Hello, it's Mia Friedman here. This is No Filter, and thank you for having me in your ears. I'm not going to be the only one in your ears over the next little while. Andy Lee is the guest you're going to hear from today, the iconic half of the radio duo Hamish and Andy.
Love being a reliable source to call upon, and I do definitely worry that having my own family means that I give that up.
He's a broadcaster, a TV presenter. I guess you'd call him a comedian. He's also a podcaster. His podcast does very well, and I'm not at all competitive. But the person who's going to be interviewing him is not me. It's actually Kate Langbroek. I've asked Kate to do a season of No Filter while I work on a couple of other projects here at Mamamia, and I was so chuffed when she said yes, because I think she's honestly one of the most talented, instinctive, and disarming interviewers in Australia. She has a great story herself. She has 4 kids. They're all teenagers now. I think one of them might be 20. She is married, and she and her husband and their 4 kids, who were all teenagers at the time, moved to Italy back in 2019. She had just come off the back of almost 20 years of an incredible radio job herself. She was one of the highest paid people, and she walked away from it because she wanted to do something different with her family. She wanted an experience. And on this season of No Filter, over the next few weeks, she has got some incredible guests. There's a riveting episode about Munchausen's by proxy, which you may have heard of, where people make other people ill to get attention for themselves. She's interviewing a famous NRL player, Kayla Itsines, the fitness guru, a bunch of people that I've wanted to talk to about a bunch of issues for a really long time. Kate's landed them, and you are going to love this season of No Filter. But today it's about Andy Lee. As I said, wanted to interview him for a really long time because I'm really fascinated by the idea of being part of a duo and how do you have an identity within that. It's been interesting to watch them both forge their own independent media identities over the last few years while still maintaining their duo identity and their wildly successful podcast. But that's not the only duo Andy's part of that people are interested in. He also has a long-term partner. Her name's Rebecca. And there's a bit of a phenomenon on the internet where his followers, who are strangers mostly, urge him to propose to her every time he posts a photo of them together. It's something that we've actually written about at Mamamia, how kind of insulting this is to both of them and how intrusive. But I've never had a chance to ask him about that. Kate does though, and it's a fascinating interview because for people who have a very sort of sunny, comedic brand, I guess you would call it, and public persona, what's the other side like? He doesn't do a lot of these interviews. I can't think of any really that I've listened to. He gets kind of emotional and he goes into some areas that are really sort of unexpected and personal.
Yeah, we're not afraid to tell each other how we're feeling in good times and bad, but people are. And I don't think too many mates get the opportunity to do that.
And that's also about Kate. She has this way of getting stuff out of you. I've been interviewed by her before. It's like therapy. Anyway, enjoy this interview with Andy Lee. It is a cracker.
Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. Andy Lee, welcome to No Filter.
Thank you. Nice to be welcomed.
It is nice to be welcomed.
Yeah.
Imagine if I was like, what are you doing here?
I know, exactly.
Yeah, which is actually what I did say when I walked in because you got here before me.
You know I'm punctual though.
You're more than punctual. You were unfashionably early.
Yeah, it was. I actually annoying sit in the car kind of guy. I would prefer to be right on time. 5 minutes early isn't more annoying than 5 minutes late, often.
Yes,
people trying to get ready and do their
people
things.
aren't prepared for you.
No.
That's very unlike most people in showbiz, actually. because you're very now this
Mindful of others.
well, thoughtful. He's a thoughtful guy. I've never encountered it before. But because you're very left brain and right brain, so creative, which doesn't always sit with order.
With organised. No.
Yeah.
And Hamish, and I'd argue, he's more creative than I.
Sorry, who's Hamish?
Hamish, good friend of mine. He doesn't have the organisation.
Right.
But hilariously will text me and go, I'm going to be either 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late. I'm unsure.
I'm not sure.
He's never been early,
And
but
you're
it's a good
so
move.
well organised, you would know which of
Yes.
those he's going to
I
be.
build in the buffer.
Okay.
Yes.
Speaking of Hamish, it is almost impossible to talk about Andy Lee
Yeah.
without talking about Hamish Blake. I can say, name a more iconic duo because it really is, but it's a very unusual coupling. A, because it seems so harmonious and organic.
Seems.
Well, and also because it's lasted longer. It's been more enduring than any of your more romantic relationships and his.
Exactly. And we sleep together less than the other romantic relationships.
key.
Maybe the key. Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's never bothered me that for a long time I never had a surname. It was just, actually, I was kind of Hamish's surname, Hamish and Andy.
Yeah.
And when we both walk down the street, we both get, hey, Hamish, hey, Andy, the other person's name. But
Or
always
where's
Hamish?
Hamish? Where's Hamish? I get where's Hughesy.
Yes.
And I broke up our iconic duo to go to Italy 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yes.
So it's very much cemented in public recognition of who you are. That's also lovely. Tell me its downsides,
Oh,
if there are any.
I don't actually feel the downsides at all. Maybe there's moments where you'd like to have your own identity, but I love what we do. I don't think I would have been great as just a pop singer. I'd prefer to be in a band, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's with everything that I do.
Collaborative.
Yeah, so much prefer doing shows with people. My happy place is doing stuff with Haim. Love sharing the excitement and the failure. In fact, sharing failure is some of the funniest things you can do, but when you fail by yourself, it can be very, very
it's
lonely.
True.
So,
but when you say sharing failure,
well, Hamish and I got our first TV show got axed after 6 weeks.
when was that? Was that
2004?
what was it?
The
What?
Hamish and Andy show on Channel 7. Yeah, Chris Lilly was on it doing Mr. G.
Really?
Andrew O'Keefe was on it as a
Holy
comedic
moly.
improviser. Yeah. Someone doesn't like my individual work, it's only me that they didn't like.
Yes.
When someone doesn't like our work, I can look across at Haim and go, well, I find you the funniest person in the world. That person must be wrong with their opinion. It's an easy, nice little shell to be sitting inside. I don't mind it at all.
It's lovely also because within the partnership, both of you have explored different partners.
Yes.
But you've explored different aspects of yourself.
Yep.
And kind of, I'm going to say, increasingly you are showing more sides to yourself, I think, which always existed. But I'm kind of reminded of this because I remember years ago Hughesy showing me a video that you had made, and it was for one of your other great loves, the Carlton Footy Club.
Yes.
And I went, oh, who directed that? And he said, Andy Lee. And it was amazing.
Oh.
When you hold a certain perception in the public mind, and it's with great affection, but it also can be quite limiting. So it's just like, oh, you're just a funny guy.
Or I'm just the guy that laughs at the funny guy.
Yeah, well, there's that as well. We'll get on to that because that is a very interesting kind of narrative to negotiate, I imagine.
Well, I mean, like you say, negotiate sounds like you have to do something about it. But if you're really comfortable, I think people naturally feel that with any comic duo, there has to be a straight guy and a funny guy.
Yes.
Hamish and I never felt that. I think Hamish is funnier if you wanted to try and do the maths on it, but that's never been our goal. It was to try and make him laugh and he tries to make me laugh. And so I think people would try to slot you into those certain roles.
Yeah.
To say it never bothered me, there would have been times where I'm like, oh, I want to be the funny guy. But that's probably left a long, long time ago.
Well, you know, the thing is, it kind of reminds me of in every group of girls, friendship group, there's always an impossibly hot girl. So individually, although girls in the group might be hot, but you know that there's always one.
Yes.
You kind of love it as well.
Yes.
Because who doesn't love to have a hot friend?
Yes.
But your hot friend, you're the hot guy. Your friend is ludicrously hot.
Yes.
And so it kind of throws a shadow. And I think because of the work that you do, it requires a certain amount of ego to be able to do that work. But not so much ego that it destroys the work.
Yes. No, I hear what you're saying there. But I think what's lucky for both Hamish and for me and our relationship is the ego's not huge of either of us, I don't think. And that probably what makes it work. You know, Hamish is so laid back. He just wants to do fun things.
He's very lovable.
And so I found the right partner in that. I mean, neither of us were even going to go down this path until we met in uni, and we were making each other laugh, and we said we should be doing this in front of more people. But so just in meeting him changed the whole trajectory of my life, but also what I was interested in, what I ended up doing. Even though I did have some interest in performance and entertainment,
yes,
I was never going to do it.
But you were studying commerce?
I was doing commerce arts. Hamish was doing commerce science. And we met at uni, which is so strange because neither of us went very often. So it was kind of like a lunar eclipse.
Right.
But
Can you remember when you met?
Yeah. It was really odd because the year before in a quantitative methods class, which is so boring.
What is that?
Yeah, it's like
I shouldn't
statistics.
ask. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm already asleep.
Yes. I hadn't gone for the entire semester and realised I was going to fail. And you got 1 percentage point per tutorial you attended. Oh. So I went to the 10th of 10 tutorials.
To claw back the 10%.
We'll claw back the 1% because 1 per attendance.
Okay.
I got in there and the guy's doing the roll call and he goes past Andrew Lee and I say, no, I'm here. And he said, right, for the first time. And he was a bit shirty at me. I said, yes, but can I quickly make a speech to the class? And he was kind of a laid-back tutor and he said, yeah, get up. So I got up and I said, I haven't come for this entire semester for the good of everyone here. I'm destructive. I'm distracting. I try to be funny, often not. So selflessly, I decided not to attend, even though I wanted to, but I knew that you'd all do better. Right. And for that reason, I feel like I deserve 10%, not just the 1. And this tutor found it funny, gave me 10%. Oh! I got 51 for quantitative methods, so I passed.
You got through.
And a guy, as I was walking out of that class, came up to me and said, that was really funny. I said, thank you. And he said, you remind me of a friend of mine called Hamish. You should meet him. Oh. And I said, oh, okay. Where is he? He goes, he doesn't live here. He's coming next year. I was like, all right. Odd man. I'll see you later. And then March that following year, he walked across the quadrangle and just said, this is the guy I was telling you about.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. So you were in a very strange situation where Pete match-made us and then got cut out of the deal.
Yeah, right. Where is Pete?
And off we went to the pub. So, it was only in that moment where naturally I liked being a buffoon, but finding someone that wanted to do it with me and was just, exciting.
And when you say wanted to do it with you, what did you start doing?
Haim took a lot of convincing. Haim was very studious. He was doing advanced mathematics, advanced physics, like book smart stuff. And I know, it's a wow moment because I know, because you look at him and he's not street smart at all. He's like, I always say he's the dumbest smart guy I know. So Goodwill Hunting type stuff. I went to a few of his lectures and they've got these stupid equations on the board.
Right. Not even any numbers, just letters.
Yeah, letters and strokes and so on. And because I'd shifted, I was doing kind of product and brand management and consumer behaviour and stuff. And you didn't really have to rock up. You could still pass. And Hamish was getting taken away by me. His parents and grandparents didn't like me because they're like, you're missing.
Bad. You were the bad influence.
I was the bad influence. He took some convincing because he was really studious. He was doing computer science and he wanted to go down that path. And I was like, well, this is really fun. We should be doing this.
And what did you think this was going to be?
Well, we went on the radio first at SYN FM, Student Youth Network. We pretended we were enrolled in RMIT when we were from Melbourne Uni. And we went up the road and jumped on their airways. And then I got a connection for us to have our show on Channel 31, community TV. And it was after 5 half-hour episodes of Channel 31, we got offered a Channel 7 show. It felt like Wayne's World. I'm not sure if people know the reference, but we just came from a basement show and suddenly we were on prime time in Channel 7 and they thought we looked too young, so they put us in suits. Yeah. And it lasted 6 weeks and then we're gone.
But it did last longer than the 5 episodes on Channel 31.
Yes,
so you
just-
were doing my favourite concept in showbiz, which is failing upwards.
Just.
Just. But that was probably the last failure.
I mean, I've had other things. I mean, I did a show called The Cube that didn't catch fire on Channel 10, even though I loved it. It depends what you measure failure on. I mean, I don't align failure with people not watching it or not making money on it or all that stuff.
What do you consider failure?
Just not enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I mean, I was certainly more ambitious back in the day, but now it's just whatever project I want to do, it just has to be fun while doing it because it's in the lap of the gods as to whether things work out or not. You know this. Mm-hmm. There's so many ways a project can be ruined or not get or not spark. If you put something out there that you're proud of and you enjoy doing it, success. Doesn't matter what happens after that. And that's, hand on, this is not just something I can read from my Kumbaya book.
Yeah,
this is exactly how I feel about it. I wouldn't have felt about it like that 10, 15 years ago. I was, more worried about we need to get to this, to do this, to do this.
Yes.
Hamish, on the other hand, he just wants to have fun.
Yes.
Like we've been given huge opportunities and Hayne would just go, do we really want to do that? I'm not sure how much fun it would be. And he'd bring me back down to earth and I'd go, yeah, actually, you're right. And at one point when Jay Leno went from The Tonight Show to prime time,
Oh, yes,
Conan O'Brien...
That controversial period.
Yeah, controversial period.
Yes.
People, this is Tonight Show Wars of America with
Fascinating.
David Letterman and Colbert and all that stuff. But yeah, it was Conan and Jay Leno. And they asked Hamish and I to be the first segment of episode 1 of Jay Leno's Primetime Tonight Show.
Oh, my goodness.
And we said no, because said we don't want two idiots. And we thought it would be too much pressure. And we ended up being the first segment of the third episode.
Right.
And 14.5 million people watch it in the States. We're on with Robin Williams.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. And so Robin Williams knocked on our door. We're sitting in our change room and said, hey, I'm Robin. And that was really special.
Yeah.
And then straight after it, they were like, we loved it. We want you to stay here. We want you to do this. And we were saying, oh, well, we've got a radio show. And they said, we'll move the radio show. You can do the radio show from LA. And we just wanted to go home. We'd done the caravan trip.
Yeah.
So we said, we won't do a segment next week. We'll do one the week after for you, but we just need to fly back. We flew back. We ended up doing another segment for the Leno show, which went really well. And they said we need an answer. It was like by the end of that week, they needed an answer as to
So was that real American as you would imagine it?
It was absolutely as you imagine it. As soon as we walked off stage, producers were sitting there. They'd seen the reaction from the audience on that first segment and just took us and walked us straight out the back and said, hey, Jay will want to speak to you at the end of it. That was fantastic. What can we talk about next? It was just immediate.
What did you do on the show?
We did ghosting. I'm not sure if you remember that silly
I love
thing.
ghosting.
Basically a primary schoolyard trick of just walking behind someone close to them.
To see how long you can do it until they notice.
This is before TikTok and before, Instagram. So all these silly little ideas we had, they seemed more novel, I reckon, than these days where you see probably 100 of them every minute on TikTok. I was driving down St Kilda Road and I rang Haim. I said, and the ego in me were like, this could be great. This could be America.
Yeah.
And I rang Haim and said, what are you thinking? And he said, I think we'd only do it to be more famous. And I said, do you want that? And I was like, but maybe. I was like, I don't know. He said,
that's hard to answer, isn't it?
And he said, I don't. And I just love making the stuff here with our friends. We're still making our stuff with our mates from uni.
Yeah.
And do you reckon it'll be more fun? I was like, no, I don't think it'll be more fun. He's like, I guess that's our answer.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So...
Who told your manager?
There's been many times our manager has gone, you're fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
But are you sure, boys? Are you sure? But that's, we left Drive Radio at its peak and we stopped Gap Year at its peak and we only did 2 seasons of True Story and that was going great. And it was because we just wanted to try more and more things. And again, Haim would go, hey, is this becoming more run-of-the-mill? We need to excite ourselves. And I was a bit the same.
Well, there is. You're both kind of adrenaline junkies in the sense of adrenaline being generated from ideas as well. Doesn't have to have that physical overture to it.
Agreed.
So along the way, you've had this core group of friends, collaborators, and that seems to have been a constant. So it's like you've both got much loved families, but you built this new family as well within. How does that work for people who can't, or for someone like you who is constantly, you know, you've got the drive in you, you've got the engine going.
Yep.
How do you just build that?
It was great because we had a company called Radio Karate, which is the name of our Channel 31 show, and it was Hamish and I and Ryan and Tim, which are two mates from Hamish's school. And
So Ryan Shelton, I know.
You know Ryan?
Yeah.
And he was schoolmates with Ham.
Yeah.
And Tim was also schoolmates with Ham.
Yeah, right.
I was kind of the outsider, I suppose. And so it was great that we said these guys can film with us. They're passionate about it. The best thing about failing is that you can just reassess and start again and
you've
learn.
got nothing to lose.
Yes. And so we got a good bounce on the failure because the press decided to, even though they were writing about how bad the show was a week before, it gets axed and they flip it and they go, oh, these 21-year-olds, how dare they put two 21-year-olds on prime time and only give them
And
6 weeks, not support them, Channel 7's, you know, the worst, all that stuff. So we get this halo from having a pretty poor show. The show had its faults.
Right.
And what's great about that is if they just let it run for 10 weeks, and the season finished,
Would have come to a natural
unremarkable. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So we're kind of grateful. I'm very grateful that Seven axed us because you suddenly can use that momentum and spirit into something else. Now, we were doing, it was called the Hamish and Andy Show, but it wasn't ours. It wasn't our idea. It was some of our ideas, but we were made to do a lot of other people's ideas and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't exactly the show that we would put together.
Right.
And that is not a great feeling.
That is not a great feeling because, as my mother says, the camel is a horse designed by a committee.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. And sometimes you're watching shows and you're like, you can feel, or watching a movie, you can feel the executives involved and...
Yeah, and we didn't know better, but what feels awful is someone saying, hey, your show's shit. And you're like, oh, well, it wasn't really our idea. Like, realize very quickly, hey, your name's on it. You're on the billboard. It's yours. So... we incorporated our own company there and said we'll only make...
That's incredible.
We'll only make our own stuff.
Who thought of that?
Oh, I think it was a bit of a collective.
I don't think it was, Andy Lee. I don't think it was. There's no way Hamish is going, oh, let's incorporate a company, because he doesn't think like that, does he?
Haim definitely participates in all that stuff.
Oh, no, I know. But I would think in the leading of that, that's more you. That's more
and
like,
Haim would say that. He would, you know, like, I do love that side of things. You know, we even talk about that as far as even ideas go. Haim would have brilliant ideas, but I'd know how to package them.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I'd hear them and go, oh, my God, this is great. This is how we serve it.
Yeah.
So, like, he'd have all the ingredients ready to go and I could just plate it up.
Yeah.
But he always felt that my strength was knowing exactly how people want to eat this, like knowing exactly how people want to hear it, knowing exactly how people want to consume it. So that's what made the partnership so fun and exciting, because the parts that maybe doesn't come as naturally to Haim, even though he's very good at them, and the parts that don't come as naturally to me, even though I can play in that area.
Complementary.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a secret of any relationship, romantic or otherwise, is that people are always like, you got to find someone who's got, you know, the same interests as you. No. What's the point of that?
Exactly. Yes.
Find someone who's got complementary aspects to their personality.
Yeah.
But you know
Carl Pilkington, you might have heard of him.
Oh, I love Carl
from
Pilkington.
Ricky Gervais' podcast.
The Pom.
I'm going to paraphrase, but he said something about a relationship which it absolutely sat with me. And he was talking about romantic relationships, but he said, I think the best relationship is when you're walking exactly your path and they're walking exactly their path, and you look over and you're still side by side.
Yeah, right.
And he said, or words to that effect.
Yeah. In his accent. Can you do the accent?
No, I can't. You know.
Yeah.
So I feel that with Haim. I feel that all the time. Is it like we're both doing exactly what we want to do, and then you turn around and you're like, oh, you're still here. Great. And if I'm doing exactly what I want to do and I'm in trouble or unsure about it on a personal level, I turn around and go, hey, can you help me with this? He's like, of course. Or can I get your thoughts? And that's on our individual pursuits. And then together we do them as well.
Because you were mentioning Tim and Ryan. And, you know, Ryan did this incredible podcast, which I'm sure you've heard.
Yes.
The Imperfects. For anyone who's ever had a friend that they've loved and been really tight to, he talks about very generously and beautifully and respectfully about when you came on the scene, but that he was displaced, and how he then, when he saw the magic of you guys, and he was like, it was undeniably magic, the jealousy that he felt and the envy, and that for so many years he couldn't even feel the joy because he was so consumed by it himself, and then ended up having to talk to Hamish about it.
Yeah.
How did it feel for you? Were you aware of any of that? Or
No, not really.
Boys are amazing like that, aren't they?
Well, we're very busy. Like, let's get that straight.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
we're doing
yeah.
drive. We're doing 5 days a week of drive radio where Haim and I
Yeah.
were getting early and just
National.
see how many ideas can we put in this. And a lot of ideas involve travelling out of the studio and consume our whole lives and so
Right.
on that. And a period of that time, Rye was off on Nova, I think, against us.
That's right, doing drive.
So
Yeah.
so there were elements of it all. I was sad that he felt that way. When
did you know when you
No.
heard that? You never see a woman would have been onto that straight away, because I think we understand.
Yeah,
you know,
but
we live in
different for me though, because I'm not childhood buddies with Ryan.
that. No. So
we're
you
close-
couldn't tell.
We're close friends, but it all started through a business relationship or a comedy fun relationship.
Right.
So I'm not picking up on nuanced things, and our relationship didn't change.
No. And
So-
he never had an issue with you. It wasn't
No.
an issue with you.
No. So-
he loves you.
Yes.
The problem was he also loves Hamish, and Hamish has got a new love who's Andy.
Yes. I think it'd be peculiar for me to be able to pick up on that. I mean, my friends didn't like Hamish either because they were protective of their friendship with me.
Yes,
And they're like, hey,
yes.
who's this other guy coming along? I
Yeah.
think they started an I Hate Hamish club for a while.
Yeah, right.
They made up T-shirts.
Very. Oh, that would be great.
So that was...
You should have worn that today.
So I get the natural feeling that we're all protective of our people and our people that we're around, and we feel like we shouldn't be. And then you realise when you grow up and have family and kids, you just forget about all your friends and you go
Well,
so
that's
insular
it,
anyway.
that's it.
But enduring 20-year-old, your
Yeah.
friendship groups is your family.
Yeah.
In fact, your family's probably annoying you.
Yeah,
so your
I
friendship
think
group
so.
really are strong. So I could see how that would be challenging.
But also, I love the raw honesty of it,
Mm.
because going back to the discussion we had about you need a certain amount of ego to do what you do, those feelings all live in that same area.
Yeah.
And so for him to say that, as himself a very accomplished performer and ideas guy and writer and whatever, for him to say it, it just resonated in a just very human manner. And I loved it. And it kind of showed the umbrella, what you've built, you guys together, that he felt that he could say that, and he could say it publicly, and he had to say it to advance the relationship.
He rang me before it and he felt that he wanted to say it out loud, and obviously it had played in his mind for a long time, and so whatever Ryan needed to do, you know, as a friend, whatever he needed to do to try and resolve that, I'm super supportive of, because no one wants to
No, you don't
live-
want to live with that.
No.
It's
And it
too
would have
heavy.
been super hard to go, I didn't, you know, I can't remember the exact words he said, but like to be super hard to go, I don't want you to succeed, or I'm having trouble with you, my friend succeeding. I mean, that's because Rye's such a lovely person. So that's a
Beautiful.
complex thing to battle. And he would have regret about it.
Still to come, I ask Andy how it feels to be the butt of jokes, like when people say he's less funny than Hamish, which people love to do.
I think it would be more hurtful if I felt like it was true.
And does he want a wedding and a baby and all those things we're all supposed to want? Stay with us. You know when, and you've said you've never really had those feelings towards Hamish, because quite frankly, it's hard to imagine who could. But I'm struck by this narrative, which is partly humorous but also is a bit snarky towards you.
From who?
Not badly, but you know, you said before, you know, that Hamish is the guy and you're the less funny guy and you might have been the more funny guy. And at the Logies last year, when Pang was hosting and they made a joke from the stage.
Oh, yeah.
Both Hamish and Andy are here tonight. Hamish won the Gold Logie last year for the second time and is nominated again this year. And Andy is mates with Hamish.
I'm just like, it kind of feels like a joke that's sort of run its course. Do other people care more about that than you do?
Oh, I don't know what other people think, but I don't care about it at all.
Well, I was sitting at a table of people that kind of went, oh, that's...
I think it would be more hurtful if I felt like it was true. I mean, maybe that's my own arrogance.
Here we go.
I sit there and go, I mean, I make the same jokes. I think I make a joke on the 100.
No, I know.
But like,
you do. I hear you do it on the 100, and it's just like sometimes if that got me on a bad day,
yeah,
I'd be like, oof.
Yeah, no, I'm really aware of my skill set and very comfortable with how it sits, so it's all fine. Maybe it does change when you have individual success. You know,
yes.
With my kids' books or the 100 or my work on the Australian Open or all these things, if I had just done Hamish and Andy and then you never heard from me again.
Yeah, right.
And I wanted to keep pursuing it. You know, some people go off and they're quite
Sure,
comfortable
yeah,
leaving
yeah.
that space. I think that would feel different. That would be tough.
It's funny you mention your kids' books because they are such a phenomenon and, in fact, a very affirming phenomenon of you and your talents. There's a series, Do Not Open This Book. That came out just in time for my youngest to just love it. Love, love, love. And now there's a whole series of them. Do not open this book ever. I told you, do not open this fucking book.
That's the
Has that one
up-and-coming
come
one.
out yet? That's one for grown-ups. Anyway, when you're selling that book in Australia, and there's so many celebrities who have done kids' books, it's no surprise. In Australia, people could have been buying the books because you're Andy Lee.
Yeah.
And that would be great. That's fair enough. But then they released the books globally.
Yeah.
How many countries?
We're in 35 languages.
Okay.
So that obviously is a lot more countries.
Okay. And how many books have you sold, Andy Lee, to people who do not know who Andy Lee is?
Well, we've sold over 3 million around the world. But
Holy moly.
I know which way you're heading with it, and I totally agree. I actually had a meeting about this morning about another part of this project and with the books and amplifying it. The books, I fell into it. And again, this is luck.
Was it for your nephew?
Yeah, I wrote one book on a plane, 40 minutes, for my nephew for his birthday. And my best mate from high school, Hawgs, he's a book publisher and they make test books up all the time.
Right.
So he was going to make one test book for me. I was going to give it to my nephew for his first birthday.
Right.
Hawgs argued with me to publish them. And I said, no, it's a present. Not doing it. And it was 3 months of back and forth. And I said, okay, I'll check with my sister because it was for her. And so I said, hey, do you mind if we publish these books? Hawgs has been on my back. And she said, oh, it's a beautiful book. I'd love it to be out there. And I said, look, proceeds can go to George, which was my nephew at the time. We had to change the deal a bit, Kate, considering
Wow. King George.
yeah. So they've got a little school fund for all my nephews and nieces. But
really?
yeah, so
that's lovely.
I was super chuffed with how it went overseas because exactly what you said. I thought, well, I'm going to sell this, but do people like the book, or is it just because Andy from Hamish and Andy is attached to this? And then to see them travel, and when people have no idea who I am, and in Rome last year doing a book signing,
they think you're just a book
an
author.
Yeah, is just really strange and great. And you go, okay, there's something here in the idea. So absolutely, I was chuffed with that. I'm really proud of that. And it gave it far more substance for sure.
Tell me about the conversation you had to have with your sister when you had to say George was going to get the royalties.
Yes.
What number sales were you in where you went, this number's actually getting a bit too much for little George?
We'd sold hundreds of thousands of books. And but my sister's just... This is the harder part. My sister's a writer and she's a kids' book writer.
Oh, no.
But not young.
Oh,
Not
Andy.
young. She writes young novels.
That YA fiction, like from 12 onwards?
Correct.
Or,
yes.
Okay,
and she's got some amazing brands. Starring Olive Black was one of hers. She was a writer from Zach Powell books.
Oh,
she's
my
a ghostwriter.
goodness.
Yeah, so,
another big hit in our family, Zach Powell.
Yes. And she's got Girl Geeks, another one at the moment, which is girls in technology and science and all that stuff. So she's done a great and amazing work in the space. And that definitely was a worry for me to go, Al, you're so talented. And people should look up her books because they're so great.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it wasn't a head-to-head. It was a different category.
Yeah, right.
But, we're going to book awards together and my sister's there and I go with her. It was great to have a friend around. But because my sister's just so lovely and so is my brother, there's been nothing but support, which is just so
because,
lucky.
That's interesting because sometimes it's hard within a family when the spotlight is shone on one particular member. And your parents, both of whom I've met, beautiful, Margaret and Michael, they seem to navigate that really beautifully. Like they turn up at your shows. The first time I ever met you, I think you were with your dad.
Yes, it's true.
And I remember at the filming of The 100, someone in the audience asked a question about you and they mentioned your brother.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they're very...
Oh, they're the best people. My dad's the best person, I think, to be a full-time carer really for Mum and them. But they're both primary school teachers.
Yeah.
I mean,
what happened to your mum?
She had a rare disease called cerebral vasculitis.
So a blood...
So it's like a series of strokes, but a stroke's normally in an artery. It's in the veins, so it's smaller. And cerebral, she had it in the brain.
Right.
So she was the first to survive in Australia, I think.
Really? When was that?
1996.
Ooh.
So she was given 2 weeks to live in 96.
Really?
And 2 weeks again at some point.
So you were still at school then?
Yeah.
So you would have been like year 10 or...
Yeah, I was. I think it was year 9 going to year 10, happened over the Christmas holidays. She just forgot how to walk, talk, who we all were, and then was in hospital for a long time, months and months.
Wow. How was that for a teenage boy?
Well, my sister calls me the Tin Man.
Right. Really?
Yeah. I've actually become a lot more emotional in my old age, actually.
Wow.
But,
I think I have this theory that this is born from my husband's dad.
Yeah.
Classic old Aussie.
Yeah.
Brian Lewis of Sunshine, who I love. The less sentimental they are in their youth, the more sentimental they get through life.
Yep. I'm certainly feeling that. But at the time, that was probably the furthest my sister and I's relationship split during that time. It was much harder for my sister. She was becoming a woman.
Yeah, right.
She's 13.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a mum around.
Ooh.
And we would go into the hospital and have to introduce yourself to your mum every day. And so that
was she pleased to meet you?
And that's tiresome.
Yeah.
And Dad just went, like, they'd raised pretty good kids, so it was just like every man for himself. You all have to dig in here.
Yeah.
Make your own lunches.
Yeah.
Get yourself to school.
Yeah.
And we'll work out what's going on. I probably put my brother and sister a little out of joint because I went, okay, here's the roster. You're on this.
Oh, okay.
I probably tried to solve it through admin.
Yeah, of course. Well, and admin is required when you're trying to save the life of someone. Believe me, I know. It's essential. However,
you don't want your brother telling you that you've got to do this and that and this is your turn to do this and that. And so they became a lot closer, my older brother and my sister, during that period.
Imagine the conversations they had.
Oh, fuck.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and then Mum just snapped out of it, weirdly. They don't really know why. There's since been a few more cases. I think it was I'm going to make up the figures, but there'd only been 20 cases in Australia.
Right.
Yeah. So she tried to come home, and then she came home and it was a different family. We'd spent 4 to 6 months saying, "Hi, I'm Andy, Margaret," and I'd been introducing Dad as Michael, and so I started calling my dad Michael. We stopped calling Mum and Dad.
Oh, really?
There was just these little things that happen in your life. She came back into a house that was sufficient. It was just running its own race, and that was a real culture shock. And so she requested to go back to hospital
because it was a bit too much.
That's the only time I was pissed off.
Right.
I was like, "Hey, fuck you."
Yeah, right.
We've done this.
Right.
And now you don't even want to be with us. Very
I
adolescent
get it.
response.
Because now as an adult, you understand.
Oh, yeah.
And as a mother, I'm like, oh my goodness, that actually now just thinking about it is making me cry because it's like.
And she'd missed my sister, important parts of my sisters growing up. And Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And she's going through rehab and doing all this stuff anyway, but, you know, at least you could be around, you know, but which is so unfair and selfish for someone
but adolescent.
who has just lost kind of 5 months of her life, but also just gone backwards. She was 43 or something.
Right.
And then became a 7-year-old overnight.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's on a walker and she can't speak very well on her mat. She can't do basic maths and all these things. And she has to be cared for. And then she doesn't even want to be around. And it was just, I can't imagine what it would have been for Mum.
Oh.
You know, haven't really talked
And your
about
dad.
much. But Dad.
Who was staunch.
Oh, Dad, about 5, this is whether we keep this in the podcast, I don't know, but about 5 years later after, they were really social. They were off playing tennis together. Mum was, you know, slim, funky, you know,
They've got that
beautiful.
vibe.
They had that vibe.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to go out and see anyone because she couldn't converse properly and she was in, you know, couldn't walk properly and she was embarrassed. So she just cut off a lot of those social outlets. And close friends stick around. But naturally, if you keep saying no to people, if they invite you to things, they don't invite you to things.
Yeah.
And so then Dad loses all of that. And so you're in a situation where your dad's living a very different life than he was and what's signed up for. And, you know, when people say in sickness and health, you know.
Yes. No one means in sickness. No one means it. It's like for richer or for poorer. I didn't mean poorer. You know.
Exactly. It's a true test of that. And Dad and I were driving back from somewhere one day and he said, I want to talk to you about something. And what year would this have been? I don't know. It's a while later. It's about your mother. And in my head, I've gone, he's found someone else. Oh. And probably speaks to me. I'm like, he's done really well for half a decade doing this.
But he can't keep doing it.
But he can't keep doing it. I totally get it. And so I'm getting ready for him to go, you know, I've found someone else. And then he's gone, I'm going to take time off work to make use of the time with Mum because we're not sure how it's going to go. And I'm like the opposite of what my
you were thinking.
So I didn't tell him at the time, hey, yeah, I thought you were going to go, hey,
Tin
I'm
Man.
rooting the librarian.
Wow.
But that's who he is. And
Do
he's
you
a special
think,
guy.
I mean, obviously that example would say no, but that doesn't encapsulate all of you. Do you think you are your father?
Oh, no.
I mean,
no.
very few people could be your dad.
Yeah, but I also don't think anyone knows whether they can. I mean, in practice, how do you test that? How can you honestly say, I'd do exactly the same thing? I'd care for Beck through thick and thin.
Yeah. It's
like,
very hard.
I'd like to think I would. And I certainly have a lot of my dad's morals and share a lot of his interests and hopefully some of his kind bones. But I think it'd be pretty arrogant to say, oh, yeah, I'll do that in a pinch.
I think it's easier to always pass judgment on people in certain situations when they move on, when you don't know what it means to be caring for someone or to lose someone or, you know, the other idea we always have of people who are chronically ill or is that they're somehow saintly.
Yeah.
Whereas when people are chronically ill, often they're the opposite of that because they're fighting for their life and they're frightened and they're
fed up.
Yeah, they're fed
and they're
up.
Angry.
Yeah, they're angry. They're angry.
Yeah, and it can come out in really terrible ways. Now, again, to my mum's credit, she just doesn't complain. And I'm like,
No.
God, I'd be complaining. I'd be really
yes.
complaining if it took that much time for me to get out of bed every day and put all this, you know, and I know there's people in far worse situations and I'm also very lucky that she's still around.
Yes, of course.
But
it still doesn't mean that problems are not problems.
Yeah.
Stick around because up next, I asked Andy if he wants kids.
And I love being available to people. I do definitely worry that having my own family means that I give that up.
Because you're so family oriented, you know what I have to ask you.
What's that?
Whether you're inclined to have your own family.
Yeah. I mean, I'm asked this a lot.
Oh, well, I can imagine that you are because women also get asked. It's just a thing because in life there are certain transitions that happen.
Yeah.
They're not guaranteed, they're not necessary. But because you are who you are, you're very family oriented. You're loyal. You're quite good looking. You seem to have found a girlfriend.
Want to procreate with me.
Well, maybe they would. I don't know. But how do you feel about the?
I'd gone through. It was something I thought I would definitely want. Then I went through patches of I don't think I want this at all. And then I'm trying to work.
Which is like pretty common.
Pretty common.
Way. Yeah.
One thing I do love about not currently having kids is how available I am to my family.
Yes.
Now.
True.
My mum and dad were down the beach house one day and they said, when are you going to start a family? And I said, you realise you wouldn't be here in this beach house if I've got my own family.
Right. But you know what they would say?
They would be happy with that.
Yeah, we'd give it up, son, we'd give it up.
But I spend so much time with them, I think, because of that. And I spend time with my nephews because of that. And I love being available to people. It's something that I love with friends, love being a reliable source to call upon. I do definitely worry that having my own family means that I give that up. Now, that could be the right decision at some point. People think that's selfless, but it's not. I get a lot of self-worth out of if anyone calls, I'm happy to go and work out what we need to do.
Yeah.
Friend or family.
But do you think that having kids would preclude
It
you
absolutely
from
does.
doing that?
It does.
Actually, I'm mentally going through when I've been available to friends. Okay.
Not to say that it's not the reason not to, but I think these are things that go through my mind, and all my friends and family, when they've had their own kids, it's a really tough time.
It's hard, yeah.
And not tough as in it's not rewarding. It's just a lot.
Well, it should be. It has to be.
Yeah,
it's the
all-consuming.
sacrifice.
Yeah,
yes,
and it's
yes.
beautiful, but it's all-consuming. And you go into your insular shells and you ask for help, particularly with young kids.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Like you need to because you need support group. And so naturally people turn inwards when they have their own kids.
And you're still outwards.
I think so at the moment. But
And
I
then-
love Beck. And
Yeah.
I think she'd be an amazing mum.
And what does she think? Does she think she'd be an amazing mum?
Yeah, I think she knows
okay.
she would be. Yeah.
You know what? Let's watch this space. Let's reconvene this time next year.
Yeah.
Because
Well, not next year. Give me a bit of time.
come
She's
on,
young.
a year and a half.
Yeah.
But when I ask that, it's partly there's a thing that happens. I always think when people have kids, I always used to say, everyone wants you to join the misery club, right? That's a terrible thing to say.
Yes.
But before you have kids, you can see the downside and the data and the whatever.
But there's
now-
no rub between Beck and I on that front because Vexel doesn't want them now.
Yes.
Like, this is the misconception. It's like, if we post a picture of us somewhere, everyone's like, oh, haven't you proposed
Yeah, but you're
yet?
a tease. You tease people with that. Don't pretend you don't,
I
Andy
don't tease people
Lee.
that. I just put
You
I put a
do.
photo up of me and my partner and everyone's like, oh, are you engaged? Like, no,
Are
we're
you
away.
saying to her, Beck, hide the third finger on your left hand?
No, I'm not at all.
Ever?
I
Tiny
tell you
bit?
the time I was a tease, and I'm not allowed to play this joke anymore, but any time I saw paparazzi, I'd get down on one knee. When I was around Beck. So we'd be at the baggage claim at Melbourne Airport and the paps would be there. And so I'd get down on one knee and pretend to propose. I was picking up dog poo one day and saw paparazzi, so I pretended to propose. And Beck said, hey,
Don't do that anymore.
That joke? No.
No.
That was funny.
It's
though.
worn thin.
It worn very thin.
I've got to tell you something else. So when I knew that I was talking to you today, I sent Hamish a message.
Oh, dear.
And this is kind of quite deep, but it's, we lost Cal Wilson, the fraternity, lost Cal Wilson. And when I was at her funeral and also at her memorial, I was struck by how much she would have loved it and how she would have heard things that she never heard when she was alive and had a position in all of our hearts and in the broader comedy community that she never knew she held. And so I sent Haim a message and I said, I'm talking to Andy and I would like you to write something about what he means to you. Okay, he didn't get back to me for 2 days. I'm like, okay.
He got back to you. That's good.
Yeah, he got back to me. He not only got back to me, he got back to me with this, and I'm going to read it to you. Hey, Katie, so here's some absolute train of thought musings on what my friend Andy means to me. Upon reflection, I guess I've always gone through life with a curiosity, an appetite for adventure, and the belief that in almost all situations there's the option to find comedy in it. But to get really deep really quickly, I also perhaps lacked the full belief in myself to pursue that feeling. I think I suffered a lot from waiting until it was the perfect time to do something, rather than taking a leap. I was 19 and looking back full of dreams, but also apprehension. As a 19-year-old, Andy introduced me to the term back yourself, and he really did. And alongside him, I began to do the same. I think through his friendship, he unlocked courage in me. Maybe I would have got there in the end, or in a variety of different ways, but it really was in meeting Andy that I found a partner who brought out a desire to take risks together and leap into the unknown, and that was a massive gift to me.
Pretty special.
There's more.
It's the most work he's done in 5 years.
I don't know why I'm so moved by this, but I love it. I love it for you. I owe him a huge debt for hundreds of things, but the older I get, the more I see and value that initial change in the trajectory of my life and the seedling of challenging what may be possible. We've been through adventures and highs and lows that no one but us will understand or possibly care about. And it feels 500 times more fun to have experienced it with him than alone. So I love Andy for the many things he is and the decades of belly laughs he's given me. But I also have that deep love for the lessons he's taught me during those formative years. I really believe I've experienced a wildly richer life because of that gift. Okay, I won't ramble anymore, Ando, because people have tuned in to hear your thoughts, not a letter from me. Big love.
Amazing. Yeah. Pretty cool.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, but I always promise myself I don't cry on podcasts because
Here you go. But why not?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? What is life? Life is laughter and life is tears.
Yeah, because it ends up on Daily Mail article or something, and that's not where I want this to be. But it's special. What I love about, I mean, it's so lovely for him to say it publicly, but we've also said those things to each other privately.
Did you get weird. Down on one knee?
No, but I know that sounds odd, but
yeah, you have to.
Haim and I connect constantly about those things. He hasn't put that as beautifully as that before, but maybe he has. But yeah, we're not afraid to tell each other how we're feeling in good times and bad. But people are. And I don't think too many mates get the opportunity to do that, as in male mates.
While they're living.
While they're living. And so I'm really grateful for that. That's obviously lovely words.
They're beautiful words. Yeah. They're richly deserved. You're a treasure, Andy Lee. You really are. You really are. Thank you for sharing yourself with us.
Oh, it took us a while to get here. It was like 2.5 years. I didn't say
that. Why did it take so long? You're elusive. I don't think you like to do this sort of thing.
No, I don't like this stuff.
No, you don't like it.
No. But I promised Mia that I'd do it at some point.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. If I ever say I'll do something to anyone ever, I can't not do it.
I want to get you to tell me you'll do something.
No, well, often people get the raw other answer, which is no, I'm never going to do that, which I have no problem saying to people's faces. But apologies to me that I hadn't got around to it by now, but I'm so glad I got to do it with you, Katie, because we know each other very well.
I loved it. I know you better now. I'm not surprised by anything. Thank goodness. Andy Lee, thank you.
Cheers.
Well, that was such a great conversation. I loved getting a look inside what goes on in Andy's head. I think the sign of a good conversation is when aspects of it stay with you long after the conversation is finished, and that was the case with Andy. I thought about him a lot, and I thought about his take on things and his honesty, reluctant honesty at times. I basically loved all of it, and I hope you have too. We'll put the link in our show notes for Andy's children's books and all the other things he's up to. The executive producer of No Filter is Kimberly Bradish, with sound production by Madeline Joannou. Thanks so much for listening.